Hapless teenagers beset by demons in the woods. A strange new drug that turns art into murder. A can't beat a deal on a new house with a horrifying past. A video game that might usher in the apocalypse. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, Shadow Play, and Murder Virus, comes Volume 4, collecting Baker's no-sleep work along with several never-before-published short stories. This 99-cent volume also includes the opening chapter of the author's forthcoming teenage giallo novel, Black Gloves and Broken Hearts, due out later this year.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. My name is Sean.
And I'm Missy.
And Missy, what movie are we going to be talking about today?
Mother May I. It's from 2023, and you can stream it right now on Peacock and on Tubi. It was written and directed by Lawrence Vanicelli, starring Kyle Gallner and Holland Roden.
Also, Chris Mulkey, for any Twin Peaks fans out there. Hank Jennings.
I was going to ask you if he was from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
I thought I recognized him. I haven't watched Twin Peaks in a long time, so I'm foggy.
So this movie, I've never heard of this movie before. This is from 2023. Talk about just under the fucking radar. So how did you find this movie?
Okay. Well, and I know that this movie was it was a COVID movie. It didn't get released till it didn't hit streaming, I think, until 2023, but they shot it during COVID.
Okay, that makes sense because there's essentially two people in the movie.
Two people in the whole thing. I found out about it because Kyle Gallner is one of my favorite actors, like favorite current actors. I mean, anybody listening to us is going to know him. He's a scream king. He's pretty much king of the indies, and that's my jam. Indies and horror is what I love. And I've been listening to some podcasts that he interviewed on and really digging into his movies because I started watching a lot of the horror stuff during 31 Days of Horror, and then I just started digging into other things I hadn't seen. And that's how I found this one. He mentioned it on a podcast or in an interview I read. And then I looked it up, and it was available on Peacock. So I figured I'd give it a spin. I watched it for the first time during 31 Days of Horror, and then I watched it again last night. And when I watched it, it just it blew me away. It's one of the creepiest, most horrifying things I've ever watched. Now, I mean, it's not bloody. It's a slow burner. It has to do with like emotional trauma and relationships with parents and stuff. And being someone who's always had a strained relationship with my mother, I connected with it. So it really gets under my skin. The basic gist of it is Emmett, his mother passes away, and he and his fiance Anya go to clean out her house. And then his fiance starts acting like his mother who abandoned him. And it hits me, and when I was watching it yesterday, there's such great interplay between the characters, and I'm watching it thinking this is what madness looks like as the story is unfolding and the way they're interacting with each other, and it's subtle and insidious and scary, and it took me for a ride, a weird fucked up ride, and it sat on my mind for a few days. So when we were talking about movies to cover, I said, why don't we do this one? It it's a good movie, and there's no hype about it. I only know about it because I heard one of the lead actors talk about it in an interview, and I don't remember which one because I've been listening to quite a few. But that's how I discovered it, and I'm glad I did. I mean, pretty much, Kyle is one of those actors that if I see his name, I'll check it out. Like, I he always blows me away, and he picks really interesting projects. They're usually indies. He's done a lot of horror, so I'll almost always give it a try. And when I read the synopsis, it sounded interesting. I'm not always the most receptive when it comes to slow burners, but this grabbed me immediately. Both times I watched it, like, it does not feel boring to me. And it's one of those kind of movies where it's just two characters really for the most part. And when he does those movies, they're always outstanding.
Yeah, Strange Darling.
Those two-hander movies where it's him and one other person, and he blows me the fuck away every single time. Strange Darling, the second half of Smile, The Passenger, Dinner in America, they're all two-handers like this.
I feel like 80% of people will dismiss this movie as like too slow or boring or something. And here's what I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in horror, right? But not just, I'm interested in all horror or most horror, but I'm interested in the kind of striations of horror. And what I mean by that is like most horror doesn't actually scare me, right? And this didn't
Right.
scare me at all. But what I find horrific more than anything else is aging. And this movie doesn't play with aging so much as it plays with this idea that like this like we become our parents kind of thing. And also, like you said, madness. There's this great moment in the movie where he's like, I don't know what's fucking real. And he's so believable because at that point, everything that character has been through, not like he's the only person going through trauma in the movie, but I mean, his fiance is basically becomes his mother, like possessed is the assumption. And it's like he doesn't get it, then he gets it, but he doesn't believe it, then he believes it, then it stops, and then it's like right there, it's like that relationship's done. I don't think you can go through that and be like, oh yeah, like let's have a kid. I don't fucking think so. Um, but I just found that it's, you know what it is? It's the horror of inevitability. You are inevitably going to grow old. You are inevitably going to die. You are inevitably going to become some variation of your parents because they raised you. And in this case, it's not even the weird thing is she didn't raise him. He was taken from her at a young age, or she left him. And it's the fiance that's because so it's like she's almost a surrogate in that regard. And that's even more
Right.
terrifying, right? Like,
Well, and it's also, I mean, like, trust and vulnerability. Like, that shit's terrifying too. This
yeah,
is supposed to be your partner, the person that you trust completely. And I mean, he doesn't know if fucking with him because she keeps insisting on doing this role reversal thing to work through their problems
yes.
where they'll be each other.
The reversal chair. I forget what they call it,
Yeah, the
but
chair reversal. That's what she calls
yeah.
it.
And like her
Reversal.
mother is some like high priced like New York shrink, right? So she's got all
Hmm.
these ideas about that. And
But she is not a therapist.
she's not a therapist, but I mean she's damaged in a way that wealth and privilege allow people to be damaged, and it's no less damaging, perhaps. I don't mean to dismiss that. It's relative, it's real. But like there's a scene where they do role reversal and he does her,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh shit, like old boy is fucking coming for her. But it's also, I think, like Kirsten and I were talking about it, it's like I'm pretty sure this is the point where he's like, this relationship is done. I'm putting a bullet in the back of its fucking head.
Hmm.
And he's like claws are out, right? Because he just destroys who she is on a fundamental level. And
But
in like that sounds very aggressive, and it is, but in a subtle way. And that's this whole movie's approach is subtle.
but
And that's the
he's very antagonistic through the whole
antag
thing. Like he is justified in that situation. I would have attacked her too,
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
verbally, because
Yeah.
she's through the whole thing. She's, constantly trying. She doesn't allow him to open up on his own. She's constantly attacking him, which is also going to hammer your trust. How are you
Yes.
going to open up to somebody who's constantly, you know, let me in, let me in, let me in? That's going to make me freeze you out.
Yeah. And he's obviously the same, like exactly the same. That's exactly what's happening. Because I mean, it's almost right away. Like they should be in a fairly, I don't want to say like they seem like they're in a good place at first, maybe, but then like real quick in the movie, like you see this aggression come out, and it's because of this, her catalyzing it with this chair reversal thing. I want to mention, so the fiance is Holland Roden, and I know her from Channel Zero, Butcher's Block. She plays the twins. And so this actress, I think, is fucking phenomenal. And here's why I think she's phenomenal. Because in Butcher's Block, same thing as this movie, she's extremely off-putting to me.
Okay.
But in a very like if I was a director, I would be like I like I would write characters for her because I think she's so good at what she does. I haven't seen her in anything else. She's in a bunch of stuff. She was in Weeds. She was in Teen Wolf, the series. She was in Mayans. But she's very good. And she's very good at playing multiple, like in Channel Zero, she's twins. And in
Okay.
here, she is Anya, which, by the way, is, I noticed in reading about this, it's Hungarian for mother, which I thought was
I found that
interesting.
too.
Um, but then when she is the mother, like possessed, or like, and they never concretely tell you, like, was she fucking with him or was that really happening? Oh God,
Right. They're
That was,
both, they're, I mean, they're both unreliable narrators. We can't
yeah,
really trust either of them. And all
yeah,
of this started when they were on psychedelics because they were
that's
shrooming.
right.
But it happens for, I mean, I've never done shrooms. I don't know how long they last, but
Not that long, 4 hours usually. I mean, it depends on how many you take, I guess. But I mean,
so they should, he was normal by the next day, or, he
yeah.
was okay. He was himself by the next day.
Which, by the way, they both did, but him especially. Like, I felt like he really captured. He really seemed like he was on mushrooms. It
he's
was it
he's
was fun.
fantastic, and he conveys so much through expression and with his face. I mean, those opening sequences when he goes to pick up the dead mother's ashes.
Yeah,
There's this opening scene. He goes to get his mother's ashes, and he's talking to the mortician, coroner, whatever. Um, and they give him mom in this box, and the mortician is, oh, we can get her in something nicer if you want. We've got this and that. And he's like, no, she's fine.
yeah,
And they just kind of stand there and stare at each other for a minute, and then the mortician is just like, okay, and he goes away. But Like he's that scene and the scene where he lets the ashes go tell you everything you need to know about his relationship with his mother
Yeah.
without him saying much at all.
Yeah, agreed. It's really well done. It's really it trusts its audience for sure.
Yeah, it feels very, and I think that's probably part of what gets under my skin too, is that it feels very intimate and personal.
It is. Yeah, and that again, that goes to where I think a large percent of people, especially horror fans, will find this infuriating.
Right. I mean, I don't, it's horror, but I mean, it's not a straight up horror movie. It's more like a psychological mindfuck horror.
Horror doesn't always have to be like horror as a genre. You could just off the top of my head, Friday the 13th, right? It's like, yeah, okay, it's horror, but it's not horror. Like, it's not really horror as in true to life, right?
Mhm.
So
And this,
I'm interested in the stuff that's horror. I'm interested in all of it, like I said, but I'm interested in the stuff
right.
that's like, oh, this is actually really, if you think about it, it's not gonna blow its horror load all over the screen in blood and guts. It holds it back, and you have to think about it and really be perceptive. And I feel like
But that
that's where you
ending,
get some of the most disturbing, horrific things,
mhm,
and but it just takes
it takes
patience.
time.
Yeah. But I think this movie's definitely worth watching. Anybody that's interested in that like psychological horror, I feel like, and his performance is fan. They're both great, but
They're
his
both great.
performance is fantastic.
Yeah, he always is. And I mean, it does have a payout, a payoff. Like I think the ending is horrifying and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like just fucking heartbreaking because it just feels like giving up.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Which in itself can be horrific.
Which is horrific. I mean, and through the whole thing, he's fighting, and then he just kind of gives up.
Yes, yes. Writer director Lawrence Vanicelli, so interesting that he was one of two people. Him and Matt Black wrote Porno, which we have an episode of this show where we covered that back in 2019. It was on Shudder. It's the five kids in a Christian town at a movie theater discover like a fucking cursed reel of film and play it or whatever. Um, I just it's such a different fucking movie,
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what this guy does. Lawrence Vanicelli, like
Has he only done these two?
there's a movie called Vera from 2016. It looks like he wrote and directed it. Very curious, just because I like this guy's style. I will say a major distraction with Mother May I wanted at first I was like, wait, are they in Ireland? Because they kept early on they kept doing like this bit where they would do slip into an Irish accent as kind of like a joke, like between one another.
Mm-hmm.
And the countryside is very lush and green, and I was like, is this Ireland? But then quickly, okay, it's not Ireland. I was like, where the fuck was this filmed? And there's no filming locations, and I think it's Alabama.
Okay, I was gonna say I thought it was filmed somewhere around like Pennsylvania or Vermont. That's where he lives, and he tends to try to stay closer from what he said in interviews.
At the end, there's a point where she's driving, she pulls off to the side of the road, and they focus on a highway sign, and it's New York one direction, and I think it's at Birmingham the other direction. So I was thinking it might,
One
yeah.
of the signs does say Birmingham, I thought.
So, but that doesn't mean it's in Alabama, but that was just the closest I could get. But also by not telling you the filming locations and really, yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe purposely ambiguous. But
Probably. I
it
mean,
was distracting me a little bit. I was like, where is this? Because it was beautiful.
hmm oh yeah, and the set piece is awesome because it's all filmed at this big farmhouse.
Yeah. Oh, the house is
But
amazing.
the house is amazing. And then they've got all these acres and a lake. Like it's a
Yeah.
one location movie, but it doesn't feel that way.
And that's how you could tell it was a COVID movie too, was it was clearly like they got a place way the fuck away from everyone else, like very small
Well,
cast.
right. Well, and they all, from what he said in an interview, they all lived in like that farmhouse together while
Yeah,
they were filming the movie,
that makes
which
sense.
probably worked to its advantage too, because they were all together all the time. So it has that intimate feeling because they trust
Yes.
each other.
Yes, it's a very
Like
intimate
it
movie.
when you're watching it, it feels like you're watching something you shouldn't. Like you're seeing into
Yes.
these people's lives things you shouldn't see.
Yeah, it's got that voyeuristic.
Especially when they're doing like the chair reversal and stuff.
Yes.
Because that shit gets, as the movie goes on, it gets more and more personal. And it feels like you're spying.
Yeah, totally, 100%. That's a really, really interesting movie. I really enjoyed this. I also thought that Mark Riordan's score, I'm not familiar with him, but I thought it was a really good score. Like there's a lot of dissonant moments that really kind of map out like this kind of shattered psychological state. And then there's like some discordant, very horror accents at certain times. And then there's these like very regal, grand piano pieces occasionally. And it reminded me of Jim Williams a little bit. And I just really liked it. I thought it really added to the movie in a very invisible fashion. It wasn't like overbearing ever.
Yeah, for sure. And it adds to the unsettling feeling because they're when it gets into those slow piano songs, they're very disjointed.
Yeah.
Like they almost feel like they're out of tune, but they're not.
Yes. Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're like out of rhythm.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot
it
of
adds
dissonant notes.
yeah, that's a good way to say it. But it adds to the unsettling. It's
Yes.
just it's just a very unsettling movie that fills you with dread. Like it's dread and just it's bleak and I don't know, it's sad and fucked up and I thought about it for 3 days. So after watching it, and I wanted to talk to you about it. So it anything that if it's gonna stay on my mind like that, I'm like I want to watch it again. I want to poke at it. I'm gonna recommend it to people. And and he does Kyle Gallner does so many movies that so many of these indies that are fucking fantastic that nobody has seen.
Yeah, I mean, really, like this is so under the fucking radar. I've not heard anybody ever talk about this.
Well, and so many, I mean, even Smile was not supposed to go to theaters. They filmed it thinking it was supposed to go straight to I think Paramount Plus. They said
That's
it was a
interesting.
streaming movie, but it did so well with testing audiences. It went to theaters and it ended up being one of the biggest horror movies of the year. Dinner in America, well, it's not horror at all, but it's fucking awesome. And that was another one. It got lost. It's getting a resurgence because of, I think, TikTok and because he's been promoting it all over social media.
Yeah, he's very good about that. I know Strange Darling, I follow him on Twitter and I've been more active on that lately, and he's definitely like really bolstered that movie. And then that most recent issue of Fangoria, there's an interview with him, kind of like an expose about him as a Scream King. And I know he mentions Dinner in America in there. He just he picks his. He reminds me of like the way Joseph Gordon-Levitt was early on,
Hmm.
where it's clear he only picks what he wants to do.
Hmm. I mean, now, I mean, if you dig back when he's young, he was trying more things, but they were still all independent. It was
Hmm.
all indie stuff. You but he picks lots of things that are just what he wants to do, and all power to him. Those are the best. Those are the best people to watch,
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
one of the things I always loved about Joseph Gordon-Levitt too. Like give me indie movies that make me think. Give me weird
Yeah,
shit. I don't want to see any more stupid remakes and reboots and requels. Like give us something fucking new. And these I say it all the time. These are the movies that make me love film.
yeah,
So when I find them, I want to tell the whole world about them because these are the movies I want to keep being made.
yeah. As a Kyle Gallner fan, you have to watch Veronica Mars. You just have to. It's just I just think it's like such a fucking great show. It's almost there's an element like of it that will be ruined just because he's literally like nobody as a character kind of and then like because I know you had said you had read that he has a dark arc or whatever.
Hmm.
Just knowing that ruins it a little bit because there is a point in the second season where you're like, wait, what? Like,
Okay.
excuse me? Like, what? But it is, yeah, that is a, goddamn, it's a good show.
I always mean to, like, I've always thought about checking it out because I think it's a mystery, right? I like mysteries.
I think
But
you would dig it. I mean, it is, I mean, it's network and it's three. Well, I think the third season is shorter because it got canceled. So it goes shorter, but the first two seasons are 21 or 22 episodes or whatever. But it's very, very good. Uh, Rob Thomas, the creator, once said, I used to be able to quote it exactly, but it's something to the effect of like, I love Twin Peaks and I learned a lot watching it, like when to reveal the killer, which is not exactly fair because, David Lynch and Mark Frost didn't actually ever want to reveal the killer in Twin Peaks. That was forced. Their hands were forced by the network.
by the network, okay.
But yeah, but anyway, quick Veronica Mars plug. And now it's in my head, so I sense a rewatch encroaching at some point.
Okay. Yeah, I always think it's funny that that's what people always remember him for. And I mean, I knew him all the way back to like Haunting in Connecticut and Jennifer's Body. That's how I first came, and Nightmare on Elm Street 2010.
Nightmare, yeah, that would probably be first, right? 2010 is wait, was that 2010? Yeah, it's 2010.
I saw Jennifer's Body when it came out, and
Is
that
that
came out
before
first.
2010?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
I think it's 2000 and it's like 2007 or
Okay.
2008,
I
something
hate
like
that
that.
movie.
I love that movie. Um, it that was my favorite movie that year. The year it came out, I fucking loved it, and I remember like singing its praises to you when you just did not like it.
Uh, I mean, like my girlfriend really likes it, and I don't know. I mean, it also just has the stink of the 2000s on it, which at some point maybe that'll dissipate and I'll be able to try it again. But I also do not like Diablo Cody. I mean,
I
nothing against her
right, I
person,
know.
nothing against her person. I don't know anything about her. But if Lisa Frankenstein solidified anything, it's that I do not like her, anything about her
I
sensibility.
I loved that one too.
I think she's very talented. It's just not my jam at all. So, but I didn't remember him being in that. I knew him from Veronica Mars, and when you said Nightmare on Elm Street, I was like, oh yeah, he's in that. And I never saw Haunting in Connecticut.
It's good. That's a good, just eerie, like a good haunted house kind of story.
I can picture the poster. I remember the billboard for it was up for like a year, I think, after it came out in LA. Like there was a billboard in San Pedro where it was, I don't know if it might have even been him, but it was like this thing with the ectoplasm coming out of his mouth and it looked like butterflies.
Oh, okay. It's
And
not him.
that's
There
the
are
other
two
brother.
posters for that movie. The
Oh,
other
just
poster, the one where it shows the guy with the kid with like all the tattoos and writing all over him, that's Kyle.
okay.
The other one is uh, a different character.
Yeah, but so he's been like in this genre for a
Yeah,
very long time.
he's done shit tons of horror.
Yeah, like 20 years,
Haunting in
close to it.
Connecticut, Jennifer's Body, which really he's not in it that long, but he made an impression and everybody loved him. Because he plays like the goth boy that she eats. But what else? Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, Strange Darling, Smile, Passenger, Cleansing Hour, This, Mother May I. Scream. He was in Scream 5.
Oh yeah, did he get whacked at the beginning or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, he auditioned for the role Jack Quaid got,
Okay.
the boyfriend,
Oh, that's right.
and
And they didn't take him,
and
but
he
they
didn't
wanted
get
him
it.
in it.
And said, "Do you want to come back and die?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I'll come back and
See,
die in a Scream movie."
that's a man that loves the genre.
Yeah, for sure. And whenever I've heard him talk about it, I mean, he likes doing other movies too, but he says he'll always, the horror genre, he loves it, and the fans have always been good to him. So he'll keep doing horror. And please keep making horror movies.
Fuck yeah. That's Mother May I. That's on Peacock and Tubi. I would suggest not watching it on Tubi just because there's ads, but
Right. And the ads interrupting, like, I I can ignore the ads a lot of times, but that it would completely disrupt my viewing of a movie like that.
I mean it just kills attention.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's going to
It
kill
just
the
kills
tension.
it. It just kills it.
I think you can rent
So
it on if you don't have Peacock and you don't want to do the Tubi thing. I think you can rent it on Prime for like
I
$3 too.
I will say, so Peacock was something, I don't know how long it's existed. I was always like, I don't need another fucking streamer, blah, blah, blah. It is one of the best streamers. I mean, we were at a Halloween party recently when I was up in on the south side of Chicago, and we were in the basement watching horror movies, and I think we watched 6 movies, and we never moved it from Peacock, and it was a wide range, like from Carpenter's The Thing, to Abigail, the Tremors, um, and I will say, I got it because there was this loose conversation we had last month about maybe covering Teacup, which I don't give a shit about. But
No, we both know out of it.
Hysteria is fucking fantastic.
I need to watch that.
And that's the one I thought I was not going to dig. It's actually very good, but I'm really surprised at there is a depth to what Peacock offers that it just, Paramount Plus, I get every year because my girlfriend and her mother watch Big Brother, and they had Evil on there, so that was always, now that's done though. But so Evil was on there, and there's a few movies here or there, but it's one of those things like, are you guys done with this stupid fucking Big Brother? Boom, canceled, done, right? Peacock, I'm like, I'm having trouble shaking it. I'm like, I might want this for a while. Like, there's a lot of stuff on here.
Mm-hmm. They have a lot of horror. I actually use Peacock quite a bit because that tends to be. I'll watch all kinds of movies, but it's mostly horror. So I mean, if they don't have a good horror selection,
Yeah,
that'll
right.
end up on the chopping block. And Peacock has consistently had a lot of horror.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So it is definitely worth checking out. They also these streamers that are getting their brass balls were like, we don't offer a 7-day free trial. Fuck you. They're one of them. It pisses me off a little bit, but you know what? Okay, I've always said, like, you want to be a pretentious fuck, you better be able to back it up. They kind of backed it up. Like, I went in thinking, I'll just watch this teacup show, which again, couldn't care less. And then, bounce out at the end of the month or whatever. And in fact, like, I don't care about that show, but I found a lot of other stuff on there, so it's not bad. And this was a happy addition to that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I thought you'd dig it, but I'm glad I didn't pick something where you're like, oh God, why did you make me sit through this? Like
No, and
when I watched the stupid Babadook.
I definitely think a percentage of people that listen to this that get curious will have that exact reaction, like, fuck these two people for telling me to watch this fucking movie.
Right.
But I'm just telling you, go in knowing, like, it's slow burn isn't even the fucking word. It is just psychological on a level where, like, there's gonna be no fireworks at all. You know what I mean? Like, there are no fireworks. It's just you have to really kind of rut into this thing and follow it through, and it has some horrific.
Yeah, because it's all character play. It's not
Yeah.
there. It's not bloody. There's not a bunch of effects. It's, I mean, most of the movie is two people talking,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that it's not impactful or, you know, I don't I don't tend to do real well with a lot of the slow burners, but this is extremely character driven. So if
Yeah.
you like character driven stories, you'll be fine. I had no problem getting into it both times. I wasn't looking at my clock. It didn't feel like a sludge fest. And there are plenty of those movies that, I'm watching it, it's like, is this gonna get better?
Yeah.
Is this gonna get better? Jesus Christ, there's still 45 minutes left. Oh God, this is not one of the, at least it was not for me.
It definitely was not. Agreed. So that's Mother May I. And this is the Horror Vision. I'm Sean.
I'm Missy.